Mayor Durkan calls these moratoriums critical to keeping people in their home and businesses open. No evictions will happen in Seattle for people and small businesses for the rest of 2020. Mayor Durkan's office announced the extension Friday, citing uncertainty around the coronavirus pandemic. It covers much of the same as before. No evictions without a clear threat to health and safety of that community, no rent increases or late fees through at least October 15th, which is when Governor Inslee's statewide eviction moratorium currently goes through. Nonprofits and businesses with under 50 employees are also covered. Friday's release did not note any resources available for landlords. Now, any person or business who does have to go to court should use the moratorium as a defense. And there's also a hotline to call if you have been threatened with an eviction. Tony Black, King 5 News.